What up guys, SuperMel983 here bringing us another album review, and this time we're not going to be talking about a brand new release, we're going to be talking about one of my favourite albums of all times, and since it's celebrating its 10-year anniversary this year, I thought, you know what, let's give this album a review, because I've talked about it quite a lot on the channel, but let's do a review of it. But yeah, this is what I'm going to be reviewing for you today. Yeah, this is the debut album from the band Wodensthrone entitled Lost. This is released under Bindrune Recordings in 2010. Now, if you're not too familiar with Wodensthrone, they were a atmospheric black metal band hailing from Sunderland, UK, where I'm from. And yeah, I've been a long time fan of this band, and I first got introduced to them back in, I think it was around 2012 maybe? 2012, 2011, if I'm not mistaken, when I was in HMV and saw one of their CDs on the shelf and decided to blind buy one of their CDs because I knew they were a Sunderland-based band. I knew they were a black metal band, but that's the extent of what I knew. And when I got there, the first CD that they had on the shelf was their debut album, Lost. Now, obviously, this is the vinyl pressing, which I got a little bit later, but yeah, it's got a different cover, like there's no logo on it, and it's a little bit of a different piece from the artwork, but yeah, this is a gorgeous vinyl. I'm not going to go into much detail because I've showed this many times. But yeah, so I bought that album on CD back then, and as I said, no idea what to expect, but I wanted to support the local scene in somewhere and the local bands, and Wodensthrone were definitely one that I'd heard good things about. So I picked up that album and brought it home, and I honestly didn't know what to expect because the artwork didn't exactly scream out your bog standard black metal, should we just say, because at the time I was only listening to black metal such as Dimmu Borgir, Cradle of Filth, Dark Funeral, a bit of Marduk, stuff like that. I hadn't even listened to Burzum or Darkthrone at that point. I mean, I'd listened to, I think maybe a little bit of Darkthrone and thought it wasn't for me, but yeah, that was the extent of my black metal knowledge. So atmospheric black metal wasn't really in my mindset at any point. So yeah, this was my first exposure to the genre. So yeah, this album dropped in 2010, and it is 8 tracks and runs an hour and 10 minutes in length. And when I got home and stuck it on, I was in awe with the intro track straight away, which I'm not even good. I'm going to attempt to pronounce yeah. Anyway, the first track, the intro, which runs around 3 minutes. So yeah, that intro is very mellow, very building in atmosphere in that song. So I really didn't know what to expect because this didn't sound like any run-of-the-mill black metal at that point for me. And then when the second track kicks in, which is the main song on the album, which is called Leodum on Lande, I believe how it's pronounced. Yeah, that's a 7-minute track, and honestly, from the minute I heard that song, from when it kicks in with the drums, the tremolo guitar, and the synths and the atmospheric elements thrown in there, I knew straight away that this was definitely not going to be something I'd ever experienced in my musical, ears, should we just say. Like, this was something completely new, but I was entranced at that point, to the point where I was just like, this is definitely not what I was expecting, but I absolutely loved the sound. And then when the vocals came in, I was even more inundated with this album. Like, those vocals just came in so, in such an eerie way, like the way the reverb is mixed on those vocals at the start just really captivated us and made us think, holy shit, this is absolutely incredible. And I just stood watching me pretty much watching me speakers and the album cover and just being like, what the hell have I let myself in for? And from there on in, I was just entranced throughout the rest of the album. And quite frankly, the album itself from there on in just doesn't let up. I mean, as I said, it runs around an hour and 10 minutes in length. And that is quite a lengthy album. And it's something that really took us by surprise. But by the time I reached the end of the album, I realised an hour and 10 minutes of my life had gone, and I was just like, that was such an experience in that time. And I ended up listening to it repeatedly, and I believe it was during the summertime as well when I got it, and I was literally in awe after that point, and I couldn't stop listening to it, and it has grown to become not only one of my all-time favourite, well, my all-time favourite black metal album, but it has become one of my all-time favourite albums. It's just narrowly been pipped by Ingested Surpassing the Boundaries of Human Suffering and Malevolence's Self-Supremacy. Now, those two albums are definitely not in the same sort of genre as Wodensthrone, but that just stays a staple compared to the rest of my music taste, as you know, what bands I like and stuff, that what this album has done for me over the years. And quite frankly, overall, the album is absolutely fantastic from beginning to end. Like, the first two tracks, the other track being that I can't pronounce, which is called Heofungtid. Yeah, no good at pronunciation, what a surprise. But yeah, that song is another amazing, amazing song. And that one kind of takes on a bit of and also throughout the entire album, there is a bit of a folk influence in here with the music and the rhythms that are on this album. And it really gives it a real delicate feel to the overall album, because it's not like a blistering sounding album like most black metal I'd heard at that time. It was very silhouettic to listen to, and I know silhouettic can describe like a picturesque scenario, but this one definitely took on board that sort of feel for us, and it's one of those albums where whenever I put it on, it really puts us in a fucking good mood. Like, not as in like a smiley sort of mood or a joyful mood. It really raises me spirits every time I listen, because it really feels quite spiritual when you listen, and it does take you on a journey when you listen to this album. And I mean, there's a lot of albums that have done that with concept albums and stuff like that, can take you on a journey. But for overall progression of the album, there's a very minute version of albums, in my opinion, that can actually take you on a picturesque journey, and Wodensthrone Lost is definitely one of those albums, and I think is why this album stuck with me for so long. And I mean, the production value, especially in comparison to stuff that I was listening to at the time, every production that had sound, you could hear every instrument clear as day, and it had a bit of chunk behind it. But Darkthrone, when I listened to it, I wasn't keen on that really raw aspect. This was kind of like in the middle, where the kind of raw factors in the production and it kind of feels like a nice static TV sort of feel to it. Like, it's not super clean, it's not super raw, it's just right fine in the middle, that really complements the atmosphere on this album very fucking well, if you ask me. It complements it and makes it seem more, it just paints the picture more in your head of the album. I mean, when I got the vinyl pressing, I spun this version, the vinyl, round me grandparents, and it just changed me whole feel for this album yet again. I mean, I was staring at that alternate artwork and the inside artwork endlessly, and it just changed the perspective for me. And then after those first three tracks of ones that I can't pronounce, to the song that Those That Crush the Roots of Blood, from there on in, it kind of the production kind of becomes a bit more louder and a bit more cleaner, should we just say. Like, the drums become a lot more potent in the mix. I feel like on the first two tracks, they are kind of faded back in the mix, but it really sets up the pace for the album in such a way that that it's like it really does give you that storytelling vibe. And then when it gets into my favourite track, Black Moss, it's just another kettle of fish. I mean, that is my second favourite song on this album, I'd say, behind the second song, Lidun Unlande. Obviously, pronunciation. But yeah, and then the rest of the album just flows so nicely, and even the acoustic elements that come out of nowhere on this album just really give the album a sense of pace and progression that I have never heard such elegance on an album than I have when this album. And the guitar tone is another rich factor on this album. I mean, on Curse, I feel like the production was a bit too clean for it to connect as well as Lost, because it would have been as good as Lost if it had a bit more of a more rougher production, shall we just say. But yeah, the guitar tone is absolutely amazing, especially with the reverb and the atmosphere and the tremolo picking. It's just absolutely incredible, especially with those touches of folk that I touched upon earlier. The folk elements just really make it stand out a little bit more. And the drums, absolutely fantastic work on here. They are they definitely have a relentless factor to it when it needs to be, but during the sophomore part and the more ambient parts on this album, they really do create some like folky progressions in there that really make it stand out, and the drum work is definitely, in my opinion, something to admire on this album. Bass work, absolutely incredible as well. It sings through the mix very well. It's like quite fine in the mix, but it does cut through quite nicely to give it that real feelsies when it needs to be. I absolutely love the bass tone on this album. And then the vocals, absolutely incredible. They are there's some parts on Heo Fungted. Yeah, the guys are probably going to watch this video and be like, what the fuck is he pronouncing that like? But yeah, there's some vocal performances on that. The shrieks, the high-end black metal shrieks are just, oh, they just send chills. They make my hair stand on end every fucking time. And quite frankly, it is something to behold. And then the ambience and the synth parts and the atmospheric samples that are on this album just make it just feel like an absolute story and a blissful experience, if you ask me. And before I conclude this review, I am going to tell you one story which inspired us to do this review, besides the album being 10-year-old. Is one time me and my aunt, this was quite a while back, me and my auntie used to go on rambles and hikes together during like the summertime and stuff. And we went up to somewhere, I can't remember where it was, but we always just used to talk and stuff like that and just take in everything as we went. But this one time, I said to my auntie, I want when we get to this summit of this place, I can't remember where it was, I want to just sit on the top and just admire the view. And it was quite misty and quite there was quite a bit of fine rain coming down, but I wanted to sit on a ledge and just look at the horizon, should we just say, and just take it in and listen to this album. Now, at the time, I had like the wired AirPods, like earphones, like, and they weren't exactly noise cancellation, but they let in like little bits of wind and little sounds here and there. And I stuck on this album when I got near the top, and yeah, my auntie just went off and took some pictures and what have you, and I was sat there for about I think it was about 20-25 minutes, something like that, and just sat and just took it all in, like, and just was in, like, I didn't even touch my phone. I just put my iPod on and just listened to this album, and quite frankly, it is one of the most mesmerizing and wow moments in my fucking life, and it's something that I will never forget. And that's one of the reasons, and one of the fine reasons, why this is my favourite black metal album. To get into such a moment of solitude is quite a rare thing. I've had a couple of times, but the best moment was definitely listening to this album on that ledge. I mean, it was kind of similar to that kind of view that I could see, and it was just something else, man. Like, and yeah, to have that connection with it, and every time I listen to this album, whether I'm going shopping, going out for a wander, or even just another element that I do like to do is put this album, or another place I like to listen to this album is just before bed. It just puts us in that sense of ease and solitude, that it just puts us in a good night's sleep every single fucking time. And quite frankly, that is why this album, surprise, surprise, is going to get a 10 out of 10. It's one of my favourite albums of all time, and yeah, if you haven't heard this, you just need to. I'd recommend it. If you haven't heard of them, I would recommend, if you're a fan of the likes of Wolves in the Throne Room, Winterfylleth, Drudkh, and Agalloch. If you're a fan of any of those bands, this is definitely for you. And this is the vinyl pressing. I might as well show it. It's got 2 printed in the sleeves with like thank you notes, and it comes on the rare blue vinyl, which I was so happy when I found this, and I got it for a really good price as well. And as I said, I've got the CD. I did have the shirt, but I think I threw it out because it got really small on us, because it was like Fruit of the Loom, and that's pretty thick and it was tight. So, but I've still got me Curse t-shirt, so another blue vinyl. Yeah, really, really nice. And the final thing I'm going to showcase is... oh, where's it gone? Where's it gone? There we go. The poster that came with it. Now, it's seen better days because I've had it up so many times, but yeah, it's a portrait one, and if I don't drop it, a landscape one. And yeah, as you can see, it's seen better days, but yeah, I've decided not, if I'm ever going to get this up, I'm going to frame it. So, but yeah, this album is absolutely amazing, and 10 out of 10. And if you're in black metal and you haven't experienced the world of atmospheric black metal, or you want to explore it a little bit more, then this is definitely my recommendation. Absolutely incredible album. If you just want us to review Curse, then let us know in the comments. And if you just want us to review some more of my all-time favourite albums, like Ingested Surpassing the Boundaries of Human Suffering, I reviewed that like nearly 10 years ago now, and just over 10 years ago. Yeah, I reviewed that back then and it wasn't a good review, so if you want us to do a review of that, or maybe the remixed and remastered one, just let us know and I'll see what I can do. But yeah, I'll see you till next video, and remember, stay metal, stay safe, and I'll see you later.